Welcome to my first Hardcore Nuzlocke. In Fire Red, I was just trying to survive my first ever Nuzlocke to the end. This time I wanted to see if I could actually play well and earn the victory. And if I somehow survive this, my next challenge will be even more chaotic. So you probably know the basic Nuzlocke rules, and for today's hardcore run, here are the additional ones. Now after naming myself Cheese and revisiting the inside of the moving truck we all remember from our childhoods, it's time to choose a Pokemon. I choose Mudkip and name it Bread, as in this run, the goal of my nicknaming will be to make a sandwich. After receiving the Pokedex and some Pokeballs, off I go to Route 101, where I capture a Wemple I named Tomato. It's not until much later that I find out starters in this game are met at Route 101, and I should not have captured this Wemple, but thankfully I never used it anyway. On Route 103 I capture a Poochyena I name Ham, then on Route 102 a Lotad I name Cucumber. After arriving at Billburg City, I go to see Dad, only to be introduced to Wally and told to go with him as he captures his first Pokemon. It's a Rolls. Which, to be honest, I'm kind of always jealous of, but in a Nuzlocke I can't really control whether or not I'll get it. After finally being allowed to leave, I head to Route 104, where I capture a Marill I name Mayo, as in mayonnaise. Then in the Petalburg Woods, I get a Shroomish I name Rocket, which is like spinach but with a little punch. Get it? Because Rocket is a spicy spinach, and Shroomish will evolve into Breloom, who punches stuff. A little bit further into the forest, I find a man who was being chased by Team Aqua, an evil organization who wants more water in the world. Is that all? More water? It's not necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, after kicking his pooch, Ian his butt. I'm not kicking a dog, just defeating Pokemon in battle. After defeating him, I get to Rustboro City, and it's time to face the first gym leader, Roxanne, who, after a tough battle with me spamming a lot, Water Gun takes down her Rock-type Pokemon, one after another. After another. After another. I said after another. Okay, the Nosepass has a bit of pep in his step, but eventually we get there. She gives me the Stone Badge, and I have my first badge on my journey to defeat the Elite Four and become the Pokemon Champion. But upon exiting to continue my journey, I see the same Team Aqua Grunt running away, and then the same man I helped earlier asking for help once more. I follow him to a cave where the Team Aqua Grunt has cornered himself, but he's also taken an old man's Wingull hostage. The Wingull's name is Pico, which is Peak, so that's not happening, not on my watch. After getting interrupted by a Whismur, I capture and call Turkey. It's time to battle for Pico. I easily defeat his pooch, again, with Rocket spamming absorbs, and then the grunt gives me back the stolen goods and releases Pico. The old man offers us his help if we ever need it as thanks and says his goodbyes. Then back on Route 116, where I'd skipped my encounter by using Repelbles, I run into a Taillow, which is the exact Pokemon I wanted from this area, as it would be the key to defeating the next gym leader, Broly. I named Taillow Butter because, with Marshtomp, they will be my bread and butter for this Nuzlocke run. Then the people of the Devon Corporation give me a phone and Devon goods to deliver to Slateport City. But before that, they also give me a letter to deliver to Steven in Dewford City, which is where I intend to go next for the gym anyway. But not before May, my rival, stops us for yet another fight. Shroomish and Mudkip work together to take out her Wingull, and then against her Trico, chaos ensues as I find myself swapping over and over again, not lose any of my Pokemon as Trico hit Butter way too hard, and she wasn't coming in for the KO like I thought she would. Playing on set and not having a free swap in after defeating a trainer's Pokemon makes the Hardcore Nuzlocke much more difficult, but it's definitely more interesting. We eventually do get the victory and Bread evolves into a Marshtomp. Then with the help of Pico and his human Mr. Brownie, we get a lift on their boat to Dewford Town. There, in Granite Cave, we deliver the letter to Steven, and then once I'm in the right level of the cave, get our encounter, which is a Sableye, exactly like I was hoping for. I name him Salt, as Salt makes everything better, and then it's time to fight Broly in the Dewford gym. Butter sweeps her way through the gym trainers, gaining many levels on the way and preparing her for Broly and his fighting types. Broly starts the battle with a Machop. I use a wing attack that brings it down to the red, but unfortunately misses out on the KO. I take a little bit of damage and go for a quick attack, but of course Broly uses a super potion, but after quick attack, another wing attack gets the job done. Unfortunately that bit of damage may hurt me, but in the meantime a single wing attack is able to KO Meta-type. And just like that we're on to Broly's ace, Makuhita. So this will be an easy win. Butter uses Wing Attack and brings Makuhita to a quarter of its health, and Broly's Makuhita uses Vital Throw, which KOs Butter. Wait, what? No, my Taillow! together with Marshtomp. Him and Taylor were supposed to be my bread and butter. This is a loss I didn't expect this early, and definitely didn't want to happen right here. But the dream of my bread and butter is now dead, just like Broly's Makahita when Bread is done with him. Okay, ignore my health here, it was a closer fight than I expected. But with that, I've earned my second gym badge. But at a high cost. Rest in peace, Taylor. You're going to a better place. Pico and Mr. Briny once again offer me their help and take me to Slateport City, where I've been sent by the President of Devoncorps. Once I arrive on Slateport Beach, I kick up a storm as I defeat every trainer there before deciding to make my delivery. I meet a man who tells me Mr. Stern, the man I meant to deliver the goods to, is currently at the museum. So I go there, but there's a crowd of Team Aqua grunts visiting for some reason. Once I go to give the goods to Mr. Stern, we are ambushed by 2 grunts who want the goods I have delivered. After quickly taking care of them and their fish, yes, Zubat is a fish, duh, I meet the Team Aqua leader Archie, and he gives me a warning not to mess with him or his team, and then they leave. With the job well done, I can continue back on my adventure. And Route 1010, where I encounter an Oddish. Yay. Totally what I wanted. Thanks. Anyway, I name it Beetroot, and shortly after, my low-tide cucumber evolves into a Lombre. After reviewing my routes and encounters, I realize I've yet to use the old rod I got from a fisherman back in Dooford Town, so I capture, you guessed it, a Magikarp. I name Pepper to go with Sableye, my salt. Then I gift Magikarp the XP share I'd just earned, so one day he'll grow into a big and strong Gyarados. But before that can happen, I need to defeat May on Route 110. This battle ruins childhoods, runs. This battle ruins runs, so I do everything I can to prepare for it. I lead Salt to a Wingull who, despite getting confused, is able to one-shot it with a cut. Good work, Salt. Then when this Pokemon I mysteriously can't think of the name of appears, I swap into Marshtomp, who was able to dispatch of it with a single mud shot. Maybe this isn't as bad as I remember. So when Grovyle is finally sent out, I can send out Rocket to stun Spore, so I can slow it down and then swap back to Salt to finish the job. But that pursuit did a lot of damage. It's okay though, because I'm about to swap. But then the pursuit hits again, and oh my god, it's Arena Trap all over again. And if you don't know, pursuit moves before the trainer action, meaning even though I was intending to swap Pokemon to avoid my beloved Pokemon's untimely death, pursuit goes first, and in this case, gets the KO on Rocket, my Shroomish. I am still able to send out Salt, who does take down Grovyle with 2 cuts after the first one lands a massive critical hit, but another soldier has fallen. Rest in peace, Rocket. After arriving in Moleville City and saying our final goodbyes to Rocket, I run into Wally? Whose Rolps gets KO'd by a single cut from Salt. Yeah, that's it. He still hasn't caught any other Pokemon at this stage, I guess. Next door on Route 117, I capture an Illumise. Illumise? Not important. I name it Chili, that I definitely spelled correctly. And then shortly after, Pepper evolves into Gyarados. Now I have bred my starter, so this was always going to be an easy battle, but it's time to verse Watson and his dreaded electric types. I say dreaded loosely, as of course Marshtomp is a ground type, so fingers crossed all goes well. He starts the battle with a Voltorb, who Bred easily takes down with a Mudshot, and then he sends out an Electrike, who Bred easily takes down, if you guessed it, a Mudshot. And then he sends out Magneton, who Bred easily takes down with a Mudshot. Wait a second. Doesn't this thing have Levitate? And I'm confused anyway. Oh, well I beat Confusion. Oh, and it hit, so I guess it doesn't have Levitate? Watson sends out his Ace Manectric, who actually takes a Mudshot, and after seeing the damage from its first quick attack, I think another Mudshot will do the job. And it does. I defeat Watson and earn my third gym badge, with Bred sweeping his way through all by his lonesome. Then I head north, and after breaking a rock I battle and defeat a Geodude. I won't notice this is a new route for quite a long time, but then on Route 112 I capture a Numel I name Sriracha, and in the fiery path a baby Macago I name Avocado. Look, I'd already used 2 spicy food names, and when it evolves it will have a shell, so it'll make sense. Against a random trainer, Beetroot evolves into a Gloom, and then on Route 113 I capture a Skarmory I name Pickles. Later in Meteor Falls, I found Team Magma bullying a professor who were then chased away by Archie and some of his Team Aqua grunts. Archie warns me about Team Magma and then takes chase. Without knowing what they're going to do at Mount Chimney, I guess it's our next destination. But first we encounter a Zubat that we named Onion. Upon arriving at Mount Chimney, we find Archie and his Poochyena tanking 3 other Poochyena, and he warns us that Maxie is going to try and erupt the volcano. So of course I go fight the Team Magma grunts and beat them one by one before it is time to face Maxie, the leader of Team Magma. My Gyarados and his Mightyena intimidate each other, and after realizing my attacks are doing little to no damage, I decide to swap into Salt. A Fake Out causes a flinch, and then a Cut does a decent amount of damage, but as Mightyena's second bite leaves Salt in the red, it's time to switch to Bread. So I shoot off a Mud Shot and then a Water Gun that lands a critical hit. Not enough for the KO, but great damage. Another Water Gun does the job, and we meet Maxie's second Pokemon, the Zubat. So I swap to Cucumber, apparently not thinking at all, who then takes a Wing Attack and nearly dies, so I'm forced to swap straight into Gyarados, who takes hits like a champ, and is able to slowly whittle down Zubat with tackles. Good work, big guy. When you learn an actual good attack, you'll be amazing. With Maxie's Ace Camerupt now out, it is time to swap back to Bread, and Camerupt uses Focus Energy, so no damage yet, but maybe a little bit of concern. Bread's Water Gun does massive damage, and then Maxie goes for a Magnitude. Well, this could end badly. But it's a 5! Get wrecked, Maxie. Does barely any damage, and another Water Gun is able to secure the KO. With Team Magma defeated and Aqua continuing the chase, I head off to Lava Ridge Town, but first, on the jagged path, I capture a Machop I name Feta, just like old times. Wait, Feta was the Ekans? And what was the Machoke? Oh right, Khadija! Definitely didn't pronounce that right, but the one from my Fire Red run that I kept calling Kojita, like some sort of Dragon Ball Z fusion. Anyway, do you remember the start of the video where I mentioned I shouldn't have caught Wurmple? Well, while working on my team and confirming my encounters, I finally realised my mistake and put in another box to live out its only existence. With some newly trained up Pokemon, it's time to first Flannery and her fire types. She starts with Numel, and I of course with Bread, Water Gun one-shots Numel, and then I'm surprised that it takes 2 to take down the Slugma. It's about now that I realise that Marshtomp is more of a physical attacker, and Mudshot was the better choice here. So after 2 Mudshots, because Flannery decided to heal her Camerupt with a Hyper Potion, I am able to take it down with a Water Gun. Now time for the ace, Torkoal. Now this thing ruins a lot of runs, and it's just all around a bad time. Mudshot does roughly a third of its health, but Torkoal uses Attract, because of course it knows Attract. After my next Mudshot, Torkoal uses Sunny Day, and now I worry that it sees the KO. With a Sunny Day boosted Overheat, it can pretty much kill anything on my team, but since one last Mudshot should get the KO, I decide to go for it, and do get it. And I earn my 4th gym badge. Upon exiting the gym, our rival May greets us and gives us the Go Goggles, so we can now enter the desert just beyond Route 112. Upon getting there, I realise that this desert doesn't have its own name, like a route encounter. It's actually just part of Route 111, which is where I fought and defeated that random Geodude from the rock. So no trap-in for me, but I do go to Mirage Tower for a fossil that I can revive back at Rustboro City. Ooh, but wait a second, Mirage Tower is a different encounter location. After a Google to confirm, I can either get a Sandshrew or a Trapinch, so come home to me, my sweet baby Trapinch. The encounter rolls, and... okay, it's a Sandshrew. I'm still going to capture it because I do like Sandslash, but along with Swellow, Flygon is one of my favourite Gen 3s, so missing out on a Trapinch kind of hurts. I'm sorry, Sandshrew. It's not Sandshrew, it's Sandshmee. Anyway, I name it Salami and send it to the box. Before riding my bike to the top of the desert tower, as you do, I choose the claw fossil and then the tower crumbles, and frankly, why is this not a protected place? I'm 10 years old, this is a relic of a tower, and now the other fossil is gone forever, lost to the desert sands. Not my problem, I guess? During some off-screen training, I ran into Swablu on Route 114 that I catch and named Chicken. I chose Chicken because when I was here earlier I found nothing but Lombre and Lotad and gave up after my 6th or 7th attempt, and decided just to continue the story. So now I call it chicken and ask why it didn't come to me earlier. Now it's time to return home and verse Dad. I mean the 5th gym leader. Well, he is actually my dad. Norman. Just a normal man. I mean, a normal guy. Nothing weird here. Norman leads with Spinder, and I with my newly evolved Machoke. I thought this would be some easy wins for Machoke, but confusion proves a massive problem, as I just can't stop hitting myself. Eventually, after swapping to Gyarados, he gets the job done, and then Vigoroth is sent out. Now with Gyarados now being my best counter to Slacking, I decide to swap to Bread to fight Vigoroth, and after swapping quite a few blows, Bread comes out victorious. Once Lanoon hits the field, I swap to Salt, and this proves the right decision, as apparently it knows only normal type attacks, though it can't even hurt me. But I wish I didn't know this before its Belly Drum, because the Belly Drum scared the crap out of me and I was worried I was going to wipe. But since Salt literally can't take any damage, Salt takes the victory, and then we're up to Dad's ace, Slacking. I go for a Feint Attack as he goes for a Yawn. Feint Attack does nothing, with essentially a free swap to Gyarados, not only for the Intimidate, but for Dragon Rage, as 40 HP against Slacking is no joke. I go for another Dragon Rage, and Facade hits. And of course it crits. Pepper, I'm sorry. You would have been great for the rest of the run, and especially the Elite Four. But I'll have to mourn later, as this battle isn't over yet. I go back to Salt, as it does have Detect, so whether or not it can deal any actual damage, we can start chipping away at this Slacking. Then one of my Feint Attacks crit, and I can see the KO. So excitedly, I hit Feint Attack one last time, and Slacking uses its own Feint Attack against me. I forgot that this was a Detect round, and I take the hit. I do survive, but that mistake could have easily cost me another Pokemon. My Feint Attack does land, and we have defeated our dad, Norman, and earned our 5th gym badge. With no time to celebrate or mourn, we are interrupted by Wally's father, who invites us to his house and gives us the HM Surf. It means a bunch of new encounters will open up to us, as well as the rest of the game. But for now, it's time to say goodbye to Pepper, my Gyarados. Gone but never forgotten. After returning to Marvel City, I run into Watson, who asks us to enter a place called New Marvel City, which I totally remember and didn't forget about, as the Oris remakes completely changed this part of the game anyway. But there, I was able to find a Voltorb by name Cherry Tom, as in Cherry Tomato, and then turn off the power as Watson asked me to. Watson then rewards me with a Thunderbolt TM, which is perfect for the next flying gym in Fortree City. But before we can get there, we have to pass through a couple of routes, including Route 118, which as soon as I hit Surf on the water, I stop and do some research and realize I need some repels to optimize the encounters I want. So I turn back around, and despite not having moved a single square, trigger an encounter. And it's a Wingull. Of course I capture it, I name it Margarine and it goes to the box. Next I come to the Weather Institute, which was way easier than I remembered, but with a new electric type against people who call themselves Team Aqua, I guess that makes sense. I quickly defeat Aqua admin Shelly, and then am gifted a cast form for my trouble. I call it Egg, then I check its encounter location and it's Route 119. But I just found out that in Fire Red, the Lapras I released thinking it was from Saffron City was actually from Silphco, so I just had to check, as I didn't want to miss out on another encounter had this been encountered inside the Weather Institution as opposed to Route 119. So rest in peace Lapras that I just released without ever checking. Immediately after leaving the Weather Institute and crossing the bridge, we were stopped and challenged by May. So it makes sense now why that professor who gifted us cast form also healed our Pokemon. She leads with Slugma in the run, so I'm not too worried, and Cherry Tom is able to take it out with a few Thunderbolts. May then sends out her Lombre and lands a fake out, flinching Cherry Tom. Then Nature Power does a decent amount of damage before Cherry Tom lands a massive critical hit against Lombre, but as I don't want to risk a critical hit, I decide to play it safe and swap to Salt. It was easily able to take down Lombre despite its desperate attempts to heal itself with an Absorb. Now with just Grovyle left, I use Feint Attack and get hit by her Leaf Blade that does massive damage. Get out of there, Salt! I swap to Skarmory, who takes no damage, and destroys Grovyle with an Air Cutter, securing us the victory. May gives us the HM Fly, but before we can use it we have to defeat the next gym, which is just up ahead. So I've been using fast forward in times I know the footage won't make the final edit, but against Ninja Boy Hideo, the unthinkable happens. He sends out a Coughing and Cherry Tom has little health, so I swap to Bread thinking I'll get an easy KO, but you'll see. I send Bread out to a self-destruct, and his untimely death. I finish the battle and say goodbye, but this loss really hits home, and probably has a lot to do with what happens next. While training for the gym, with Red now gone, I focus on Cherry Tom, who evolves into an Electrode. Then after facing 100 duplicate encounters, I finally get the 8% chance Absol and capture him and name him Nugget. Absolutely yet another favourite Gen 3 Pokemon, as Absol is goated. I do run into Steven again, who gives me the Devon Scope and shows me how to encounter a Kecleon, who I defeat, but this will now allow me to take on the Fortree City Gym. Electrode destroys all the trainers with some help from Pickles, as there are a few double battles in the gym here, but I quickly get to the gym leader Winona and our battle commences. She leads with Swablu, who somehow survives Cherry Tom's Thunderbolts only to use Parasong, which thankfully Cherry Tom is immune to due to his ability Soundproof. Winona then heals Swablu back to full, but a high roll Thunderbolt takes the KO, this time around anyway. Then Winona sends out her ace, Altaria, out of nowhere. I hit it with a Screech, as I haven't planned to use Cherry Tom against Altaria, so I swap to Absol, who barely survives the incoming Earthquake, forcing me to swap yet again. This time I go into Pickles, who of course can't be hit by Earthquake, and after a back and forth of my Swifts and her Dragon Breaths, Pickles takes down Altaria. I decide to swap away from the Tropius, as I was worried that Pickles would get KO'd, so I go into Salt, as Tropius sets up a sunny day. My Fake Out doesn't do much, but free damage is free. I try Feint Attack, which almost does nothing, but then I get hit by a Solar Beam. With the sun making it free to use every turn, I have to swap and choose Cucumber, who takes a hit and barely survives. This was the first of many mistakes. So I'm forced to swap again, this time into Feta, who can tank a hit, but can't dish one out, as he only has these fighting type attacks against this flying type gym. That was a mistake, I shouldn't have brought him here. And to make things worse, Tropius uses Synthesis, and I realize I might be screwed. So I go back into Cherry Tom despite Thunderbolt being neutral against Tropius, being a grass flying dual type. The damage is great, and the Paralyze is even better. Unfortunately, after trading blows and no healing, Cherry Tom can't do any more, so it's time to swap again. With more and more of my Pokemon losing health without dealing any real damage, somehow it feels like Feta is actually my best choice. But I'm either going to have to sacrifice him or risk the swap into Pickles. I swap, and Pickles does tank a Solar Beam, and then Air Cutter does great damage, but a second Solar Beam does take the KO against Pickles. Later on I probably would have decided to sacrifice Feta here, but hindsight's 2020. This does allow Cherry Tom to come back in and finally take Tropius down, as he's able to easily outspeed him. And then next up is a Skarmory, who is also threatening to Cherry Tom. Thunderbolt takes it to the red, and it uses Sand Attack. Oh my god, we have a chance. Of course, Winona heals, but a high roll could do it. But I miss. I go for another Thunderbolt and take it down to the red again, so no high roll win here. And then a Steel Wing, which also misses. I'm the king of the game! Thunderbolt takes down Skarmory, and the final Pokemon, Pelipper, comes out, and it's a Water Flying, so it's a 4 times weakness to Thunderbolt. But it misses, and then worse, a Water Gun takes Cherry Tom down. Rest in peace, Cherry Tom. Now, I taught Absol Shockwave, so I send him in and it does heavy damage, but it's not enough. And Absol goes down to the second Water Gun. So I send in Salt, I use Fake Out, but Pelipper protects. Go for Cut, but Pelipper is faster and it hits with Water Gun. I do survive, but so does Pelipper. And unfortunately, Pelipper is faster and takes down Salt. I only have Feta and Cucumber left, but if either can land a hit, I think we can survive this gym and rebuild our team. We just have to survive. I send out Cucumber and use Astonish, which was a mistake because I thought that was the priority move and clicked too quickly, not realizing that it should have been Fake Out. And since Astonish does not have priority, Pelipper hits first and hard with an Aerial Ace taking down Cucumber. And with my last Pokemon being Feta, it stands no chance and goes down to yet another Aerial Ace. I white out and the run is over. If I could have a redo, the same team could do it, but after losing Bread, my foundation was broken, and then it all began to fall apart. As I was one misclick away from victory and continuing the run, you know I'll definitely be back to attempt this once again in the future, but for now, this is the end. First, Fire Red taught me the rules, now Emerald has taught me the danger. And if I want to be a real Nuzlocker, then next time I'm going to have to learn how to roll with punches, as I randomize the run to test my skills as a trainer on the fly.